Egg smoke.
We mentioned last week the startup Waco, which is working on some relationships with Baylor athletes when it comes to entrepreneurship and much more, and also startup businesses. And we also told you that OpenDorse and Baylor would have a partnership that would start, in fact, next week. That was last week. And, of course, it has started. And we're now joined by Sam Weber, Brand Communications, OpenDorse. And Sam has been on with us before. And, Sam, thank you very much. What was the conversation like when Baylor contacted you? And I know that they're kind of late behind the curve compared to most everybody else. It's good to see it.
Sure. Great to be on the show again, guys. So I wouldn't say Baylor's behind the curve. Baylor's been a partner for a while now, but they're, I guess, just now becoming one of the first schools to launch their own school NIL marketplace. I guess I can't emphasize enough how big of a deal this is for the athletes and for the everyday Baylor fan. It makes it incredibly easy for any fan to go in, browse the hundreds of Baylor athletes, and offer them a deal on the spot. I think there's been a hunger for fans to understand how they can participate in NIL, and this marketplace is really it. So we're excited to get off the ground. We're excited that Baylor's supporting their athletes, and excited for football to get going, right?
Yeah, Sam, so one of the things about OpenDorse is you guys kind of are, not necessarily, beholden to, you don't have to be a big business. You don't have to be Pepsi or Nike. You can be a local business and easily connect, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. I would say close to, if not equal amount of the NIL deals that came through in this first year came from those small local businesses, those groups that want to support the university. And now through the first year, they've been able to support student athletes for the first time. I only expect that to grow in the coming months and years.
Sam, I'm checking out the Baylor Marketplace on OpenDorse.com, and what's interesting to me and I wasn't aware of is the former athlete aspect of this as well.
Yeah, that's right. So any former athlete alumni, I guess if you go back to our roots, we used to work with professional athletes to help them get connected with brands and really act as that marketplace for them where they could easily complete deals. So through that, we've had, the RG3s of the world using OpenDorse to work with some of the bigger brands in sports over the years. It's made the transition down to working with student athletes really seamless, helping us understand what athletes at the highest level want and need, and then being able to build those new features that might apply to, the walk-on linemen and not just the Heisman contenders of the world. Yeah,
like, for example, I can see there's Tay McWilliams, who's going to probably be Baylor's starting running back, but there's also RG3, and there's Corey Coleman, and there's Bryce Petty, and I didn't know that there was that aspect to it. That's very cool that it also includes former stars as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah, Faith Lynch.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, Faith Lynch, who's in our studio, who's one of our, I guess, part of the behind-the-scenes support groups, a volleyball player at Baylor. I just saw her. I didn't realize this. She's in it. She can do a shout-out, a post, an appearance, an autograph, pitch, anything. And so she's in it. That's pretty cool, Faith, that's a part of what you do as well. Sam, when now you see the NIL, when you see what you do, what you see what others are doing as well, is it starting to at least take shape where people understand it better?
Yeah, we're certainly moving towards that place. I think there's still a healthy amount of education and exploration to be done in that fan segment, and that's really what we're pushing for right now. Once you get past that, the collective organizations, the larger brands and businesses that have been active through the first year, I feel like there's a steadier hand at the wheel. Everybody's becoming a little more experienced, a little bit more open to trying to work with student athletes where, when you look back at last July, everybody was looking at this thing like, hey, we just don't want to get in trouble. Now we're getting a little bit more aggressive. We're getting a little bit more understanding of the landscape, and I think you're going to see student athletes benefit more and more because of it.
Go ahead, Paul.
Do you feel like you're coming out of the I mean, you guys were ahead of it, but there was just, like you said, there's this fog of stuff of to do. Or you feel like you're coming out of that fog now to where you can tell what are good deals and bad deals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're seeing just a little bit more professionalism all around. I think the next thing that we're excited about is bringing the fans into this. So through the first year, only 4% of athletes that reported or received a deal through OpenDorse received one from a fan. When you start to think about, Baylor's football stadium holds about 50,000 fans on 7 Saturdays a year. If 1% of those fans, so 500 fans, if they send an athlete a deal at our average fan transaction rate of about $150, that's 75 grand to Baylor football players on a single Saturday. And that's just 1% of the fan base, right? Mm-hmm. So you can see how the projections or the ideas really start to stack up, and you can see those fans start to have a real impact on what the perceived and real success of what Baylor student athletes can become.
Sam, have you seen a way, and speaking of changing perceptions, in the way that somebody like yourself or others that you work with, has the perception changed around you guys as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not that long ago that OpenDorse was looked at as kind of a small fledgling business, and I think plenty of other small technology startups that have been around the NIL space. We were fortunate to be around it a little bit before most, but you just, from a national and even local perception, there's definitely more attention on what's happening inside our doors and the doors of many companies around the industry. But it's there's a lot of attention these days, and I think that's a good thing. Definitely strives to create a better technology and better business.
I mentioned that Baylor might have been behind the curve, and that's probably more the perception at times of their fan base, because they're not out there with this look at us and some of these things that you see that have happened for other schools. It's good to see. How many of the 131 or so would you say FBS teams are now attached to what you do?
Sure. So we work with about 120 schools around the country, but that's at all levels of college sports. I think just at the FBS level, so P5, G5, and right, a few others in there, I think we're looking at around 80.
That's a pretty good number. Do you feel like sometimes these stories that someone's getting X amount of money or X amount of millions put a bad light initially on NIL that you had to overcome?
I think it definitely put a perception around it that might not have been entirely accurate, and maybe a little bit self-serving for those individuals that made that public. It's something we've been trying to combat really from pre-July 1st of last year, is that NIL isn't just for the five-star athlete or the Heisman contending quarterback, but athletes at every level of college sports have a real opportunity here. The more enterprising, the more entrepreneurial they are as individuals, the more successful they will be, because regardless of their performance in their sport, right? Mm-hmm. Those athletes who perform in their sport, they will have opportunities, and they will be given chances to succeed in the NIL era. But athletes at every level, if they want it, it's out there for them to go take it.
Do you give the athlete, whether former or current athletes, any kind of advice on what they should do to put a price on what they can do?
Yeah, so actually a brand new product we just rolled out. It's called OpenDorse Arc, the athlete rate card. So it leverages all the transactions, the hundreds of thousands over the last year plus that have happened through OpenDorse, to try to provide an accurate market rate for every student athlete for the various types of activities they could do. So it'll tell an athlete that, a social media post from you, the market rate is X, an appearance is Y, a video shout out, like Cameo style video shout out, that's Z. And from there, the athlete can either use those exact market rates, or they can go and set their own. But either way, we want them to be informed of what actual successful deals look like in the market, so that then they can go and confidently set the rates that they believe they're worth.
What are your rates for media personalities? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm getting married I'm getting married next year. I need all the help I can get.
Man, the rates for you and me, I don't know if it goes low enough.
$2 I'll post on social media right now.
$2. If you found it on the street, you'd pick it up.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a simple question or an obvious answer, but if in fact, for example, a student athlete has their deal here, and someone does click on it, $12 or $5,000, whatever it is, Where does that money, does it go directly to them? Does it go to OpenDorse and it's distributed? How does that work in that way?
Yep. So by the time the athlete sees the deal offer, OpenDorse has secured that money. One big thing that it's been a pain point of the NIL era is, an athlete that accepts a deal via Instagram DMs or whatever, and then the money never shows up. That's something that never happens when an athlete uses OpenDorse. So to send an offer through to an athlete, the buyer has to provide credit card information that then goes through OpenDorse to the athlete. So if an athlete says their appearance is worth $5,000, they agree to that deal, that athlete receives $5,000 on the nose. OpenDorse takes a small transaction fee from the buyer, not the athlete. The product's 100% free to the athlete and always will be.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate it. I remember we had you on pretty early on when all of this started, and it sure has changed quite a bit, and yet you guys are as solid as a rock with what you do. We appreciate your time.
That's right. We're going and growing. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Sam Weber. And again, I was curious.